The Rise Today Inspirational Podcast is brought to you by two relentless health warriors, Dr. Erica Harris, an empowered mindset health expert who is the passionate founder of RiseToday.com, and Megan Hubner, an entrepreneurial marketing strategist and founder of Hubner Marketing. These two inspirational forces have truly thrived through adversity and are here to empower you to do the same. Together, they serve to open up the conversation about hardship and to move you to greatness through your adversities. Learn more at risetoday.com/podcast. Now, let's get started. Let's rise today, right here, right now.
It's a good day. Get up.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back, listeners. Dr. Erica Harris here from RiseToday.com with you. And I am so excited to introduce my good friend, Corey Preston, to you today. You are in for a treat. He is going to share a very raw and open telling of his story of hardship, navigating childhood trauma, bullying, suicidal ideations, drug abuse, selling drugs, and how he chose to overcome this, and how he is now serving the world to use pain as their instigator to seek happiness and find true joy and live their best lives. We are so excited to welcome Corey Preston to the show today. Welcome, Corey. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. I love being here. And Erica, you're a wonderful human being. And how could I not bless you with my presence?
Thank you, Corey. Excited to talk with you today, Corey. Tell us where in the world you are talking with us today from.
I'm currently residing in beautiful Lions Bay, just outside of West Vancouver in BC, Canada, and loving it.
You are the passionate founder of Simplified Mind. You have navigated a lot of adversity that you're going to tell us all about today, and you're using all of that to serve you to grow and improve every day and live your best life. So tell us a little bit about what you've navigated.
Yeah, I mean, my story is like many others. There's a lot of pain, and a lot of human beings suffer with pain. And I just want to say as a disclaimer that I do have a horrific story, but pain shouldn't be measured with a teeter-totter with rocks on one end of the spectrum. Everyone's pain is pain, and we have to realize that, because we're all carrying pain. You can lose your grandpa, or you can be molested, or whatever happens. Pain is going to inflict a lot of trauma in your life, and I just wanted to say that, and I'll go into it.
It's a great point to start on, Corey. I'll just interrupt for a second because it's such a great point, right? We often share these big stories and people kind of compare themselves and say, well, I haven't gone through anything of what you've gone through. But At the end of the day, pain is pain, hurt is hurt, grief is grief. And we are here to just open up the conversation on hurt. And so that's a really great way that you just set us off to really take us forward on this. I really appreciate that. It's so important.
No worries. I believe it to be paramount with, identifying with anybody, because everybody suffers from pain on a daily basis, even if it's minute in nature. We're compartmentalizing most of our pain on a daily basis and playing whack-a-mole with our emotions, right? So, I got a pretty horrific story that sometimes won't resonate with, all of your audience. And I just wanted to set that as a foundation that pain is just pain. We can put labels, we can put identities on it, but we all suffer, we all have pain, and it's universal in nature. But so yeah, I guess I'll get cracking right into my life story. Basically, when I was a kid, I grew up on a military base up to the age of 9 years old, and I had a lot of great friends. My parents were very strict and conservative, as you can imagine, as I had a master bombardier as a father, which anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's just basically a drill sergeant. Great guy. But yeah, it was a tough upbringing. And So I went to school, and I actually enjoyed school, going to elementary school with my friends and stuff, and playing in the sand castles. And I wanted to be a film director, so I would actually organize all the kids in the neighborhood and make little films and stuff and rehearsals and of like war movies, and steal my dad's like army gear and stuff and not tell him.
Love this. Love this.
And basically around 1999, my father got medically discharged from the military, and he just blew his knees out doing workup training for UN mission, and he just couldn't medically work with the military anymore. So we were used to this base life my entire life at that point. And I found out that I had a grandfather that I was very unaware of. I knew I had one grandfather, but I was unaware of the other until he came and visited us. And when he came down, my whole world kind of lit up. I was like, "Yay, I got two grandpas. I got double presents now at Christmas," like, and I had no idea what was to follow. But essentially, he came into our lives, and I guess him and my father were, basically hashing things out and getting back into the swing of things with the relationship. My dad kept a lot of the stuff that you'll hear very soon in this conversation away from me. But basically, he told us that there's this beautiful place in Hamilton, Ontario. And I didn't even know what Hamilton was. I just knew that I'm moving away from all my friends. I have no idea what to expect. Well, let's go and see what happens. So
how old were you at this point, Corey?
I was 9 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. So nine and a half years old. And basically we moved to Hamilton. That beautiful house wasn't a beautiful house at all. It was a subsidized housing complex that I was living in. My dad's first job was out of the military as a civilian, was a superintendent of that subsidized housing complex. So when I moved in, I didn't know what any of that meant. But basically, when I started hanging out with the kids, eventually they found out that, my dad was the big super, and the guy that was responsible for evicting the other families in the complex and checking the meters and harassing, quote unquote, for rent and that kind of stuff. And so I went from being the neighborhood friendly kid to public enemy number one. And that I never really got bullied up to that point. I mean, there's one time in Manitoba on the base where this kid was picking on me, and all my friends like walked me home as like an escort. Like it was like the Four Musketeers. It was like straight up like the best situation you could ever have with your friends. And in this complex, I just, like, everywhere I went, like, I would get picked on. And these kids that lived there went to the same school as me, and it was hell. It was 2 years of like extreme physical violence. There was two bullies in particular, John and Brad, that basically pushed their mom down the stairs trying to kill her, and they were only a few years older than me. Those were the kids that were beating me up and terrifying me. So I went from being in a place where I felt safe and never worrying about a threat to feeling like my life is going to be taken at any minute because these kids were smashing my head into the concrete and jumping me. And the verbal abuse actually probably hurt more than the physical after I started getting calloused. But yeah, and the thing was, with that situation, it didn't get better, it got worse, because as my dad progressed working at that job, he had to evict more families. Just such a horrific situation. And my parents knew that basically that if I stayed there, or even my little brother, including them, they got harassed too, just for working that job. Like they knew that there was a dire situation. So we moved probably like 20 minutes from that location. My parents did what they thought was right. Any person with common sense to say, let's get the kids out of the school where there's gangs and violence and all that stuff, and let's get them into a safer area. And they did just that. But it ended up, being, I was the poor kid, and they put me in an upper class school called Winona Public Elementary. And these kids there, it wasn't physical violence anymore, but it was complete emotional abuse, like all the time, calling me poor bum and making fun of me for not having like lunch boxes and stuff, and just having paper bags. And anyways, I could go on a big tangent of all the little one-liners that were said to me, but at the base core of it, I just was alone, and I didn't have anybody there. And I think the first 2 years of living in that complex rewired my brain to not feel worthwhile, to not have any like zest for life anymore. I started shutting down. I started getting insomnia. I started not talking to my family. They used to call me the miserable one because my head would be like tilted down looking at my shoes all the time. And
Corey, can I ask, were you open with your family about what was happening at school?
at the complex, yes, but my dad raised me to be tough and stuff, right? So, but he knew that there was bullying going on in the complex, because he actually like sat me and my little brother down and said, look, we're going to be evicting this one family that we're having problems with, and their 3 sons, who I had several fights with already. They knew that there was an issue there. So that's the only real time that things got brought up. At this point, when I moved to that rich kids school, I just disconnected from life. Like I didn't care anymore. Like I was so calloused to getting abused that I just felt like I deserved it.
It's interesting. It's interesting, your story, Corey, because it's something that back then, even though we're not that old, it wasn't talked about as much as it is today. And today we have the Pink Shirt Day and the anti-bullying campaigns and the awareness and more involvement in things. So going through what you went through back then, I can only imagine that you were reasonably unsupported, especially in the public school system. And we just didn't have the awareness that we do today on how those kids present.
Absolutely. And you're 100% right with that, because at the Winona school, the rich kids school, I was afraid of going out for lunch. Like I could do a recess for like 15 minutes because it's just 15 minutes, whatever. And no one wanted to play with me. And I used to get like the tearaway jeans, Adidas. They used to get ripped off of me and all this stuff. And I have my tidy whities on. But I used to, at lunchtime, I would hide in the bathroom stall, and the teachers would come in like every time and like use the washroom or whatever, and they would see like little legs in there, and the same shoes every single day. Well, it got to the point where the teacher waited for me when I came out of the bathroom and they said to me, we've seen you here like every single day. Is something going on? Like, what's happening? And I lied to them and I said I had irritable bowel syndrome. And I literally went through the whole motions of seeing a doctor and doing all this stuff to not so much make my parents worry, but just so I could keep going in that stall, just so I could keep hiding from those kids that were like being so malicious. And that's just one example of like 1,000 of just trying to survive and to be a chameleon and adapt to your environment to mitigate the pain and the suffering that was currently going on. But
sounds like that was your escape.
Oh yeah. And it's not like there was no smartphones back when I was a kid. Like it wasn't until like I was 16 that those phones came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just basically sitting there and like terrified and like, but anyways, as I progressed, my parents moved again, and we went to another small rural community. And that's when the violence started coming back. I didn't know who I was. I had no idea. And I went through like several different phases where I would become a goth for a few months. I would become a punk for a few months. I would listen to heavy metal. I wouldn't like the screaming, but I was just trying to find my tribe. And no one seemed, it was like I was like a leopard. Like no one wanted anything to do with me because I wasn't genuine. I wasn't authentic. I lied compulsively because when I told the truth, nobody wanted anything to do with me. So I figured, hey, I'll just big up myself. I'll tell them I have friends outside of school. I'll tell them all these, maverick things about me so that they'll finally accept me into their womb. And, it just didn't happen. And as it progressed, I started just wanting to kill myself. I wanted, at that time, I wouldn't have said killed myself. I would have just said I didn't want to exist and just disappearing. Like that's how I felt every single day. And my parents and the schools didn't understand what was going on with me. But I was dying inside. And I didn't know what was going on with me. But I just thought I was broken. I thought I was absolutely broken. Like I was born with a defect. And I saw the school counselor and stuff. They had no explanation for me. They wanted to prescribe me ADHD medication and stuff because I was a troublemaker. In reality, all I was trying to do is escape abuse.
It just absolutely breaks my heart, Corey, that there weren't the support structures in place like Megan brought up originally. But how many Corys are there out there right now who are still navigating hardships from being bullied years ago, right? How many Corys are out there still navigating these very same emotions that you've experienced in the dark, right? And it's so incredible that you are here sharing your story so openly to help serve these people, because you don't know who you can touch and who you can inspire by just being so open about it and opening up this conversation about the hurt and about how lonely and you couldn't trust anybody and you literally had no one to turn to. And it's very powerful, Corey, that you're able to share this in this capacity. Thank you.
Corey, for our listeners out there that may be either A, struggling with the physical and emotional abuse themselves, or B, have children in that age bracket between 9 and 18 that have children in your situation, what tools, looking back now, do you think might have helped you navigate those waters, either from an individual student or from a parent perspective, or just looking at it from where you are today and how far you've come?
Understanding emotions is at the root of all healing. I've learned this several times in my life path, but understanding emotions through emotional intelligence training, empathy training. Kids they don't mean to be cruel. They're missing some of that cognitive development at that point in their age, up to I believe age 11 or so. But I mean, kids are cruel. It's a jungle out there, and unfortunately, it's only getting worse. Mm-hmm. Like we have the psychology, we have the science, we have the spiritual essence. All these lessons are readily available, but they're not currently integrated into the school system. So, and you don't just got a bully coming in at the bathroom trying to pick you up for your lunch money anymore. You go home and these bullies are coming at you on social media, and that's a whole monster in itself. But yeah, emotional intelligence training, even if the school isn't offering it. The parents can go and find an emotional intelligence coach or a resiliency coach or a mindset coach or a psychologist, or just to get some skills, because if they don't feel like they're human, then they're never gonna feel like they're human. But you can't feel like you're human until you get into your body and you feel the emotions and understand that they can pass, and not to store them up in a hard drive so that it comes into your life later, into your relationships and your people, places, and things, and it just devastates everything, and then you're always unhappy.
That's incredibly powerful. You're right. And that deeply rooted emotions carry with you for the rest of your life. Absolutely. So, you move through this period of time where you have so much turmoil and transition between the moves and then changing cities. And now you are through high school and you end up completing high school. And the good thing about high school is that you have a structure and routine, but the bad thing about high school is when it ends, you're left to yourself. And so what happened next at that stage in your life when you weren't required to be at school at 8:30 every single morning?
So my father, he just saw that I was on a really, I guess you could say, confusing trajectory that he couldn't figure out. And basically he convinced me to join the military, the Army Infantry Reserve. So I did that, not knowing that I had post-traumatic stress from being bullied. So it made boot camp and all those courses for the infantry so difficult for me that I tried to break my leg with my rifle to get out of it's called basic military qualification training. And I got through it, not because of my heart, or maybe it was a little bit of my heart, but it was mostly out of fear of disappointing my father. I knew that if I didn't graduate those courses, that, well, I didn't know, I felt like I wasn't going to measure up. Like, this is how I'm being measured as a man right now. I'm tired of being a loser. I'm tired of being unwanted. And I felt like that was my identity. I could attach myself to something, and I'll just, because like there's like 200 years of like history in my family, the military, and I was like, I'll just continue this. I'll go to Afghanistan and all this stuff. And, like after 2 years of doing it, I just couldn't do it anymore. And to be perfectly honest, it did hold me together a little bit with structure and discipline. And it made me feel good. Like, I remember there was a Remembrance Day ceremony, and we just finished our march and our parade. And I went into a restaurant with my dad and my mom and my uncle, and some little kid like came up and like shook my hand, and that touched my heart so much. And it just like, I was like, wow, man, like, and the dad, like the kid's dad bought me a beer and like shook my hand. It's like, thank you very much for your service. And that was the first time I ever got validation ever by anyone. And that was,
Like,
sorry, getting emotional.
Turning point. Sounds like such a positive turning point at that point. Just having contribution and service, and how you can light up a child. Like, such a small thing, but so powerful, so big.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool to go in that memory right there, because I haven't visited for that for a long time. But I got out of the military and I started hanging out with some pretty bad people. I guess you could say at this point in the story, PG-13 kind of people. And by that I just mean like they weren't like really, really bad, but they were bad influences. Like, let's go out and drink, let's go smoke pot, let's do nothing with their lives, and that kind of thing. And that kind of opened the door for like self-medication with like different types of drugs and expiration. And I was like, hallelujah. You mean I don't have to feel this stuff anymore? I can just, I can be high all the time. I can be drunk. I can laugh with people that, like I had an identity, at least I thought I had an identity with these people, because we all get messed up and we'd all share our pain and stuff. And it felt like some kind of tribe. But then, I ran out of money, and I was like, how am I going to keep drinking? How am I going to keep drugging? Well, I ended up robbing my own family, like breaking into a safe and stealing like several $100s, and just to pay off a dealer and to get more stuff, and and that made me homeless. And I never thought that I was going to go into the military, graduate, become an infantry soldier, and then a year later I'm living in my car because I made some bad choices, and that's what happened. And unfortunately, it just got worse there. My parents did the best they could with what they understood at that time, their awareness. They did the best that they could, but once again, I was led to believe that I don't know what's best for me. And I guess at the time I really didn't know, because I was just so hurt. I was hurt. And yeah, basically my father said, you can make good money, become an insurance adjuster. So I had no idea what that is. I'm like, okay, I'm going to become an insurance adjuster. So went to community college, found out there's a lot of accounting with that. I hate math. So I dropped out of college, and I never told my parents, and I started hanging out with a pot dealer that became a good friend of mine. And I started, shadowing him basically as he did all his drug deals and everything, and didn't know that that was going to be my career after that. But basically all the fun college kids went away, and I didn't know any other way to make money. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll sell drugs. I had this darkness just come inside of me where I was like, I don't have the balls to kill myself. So I'm going to put myself in situations with people that can do it for me. So I wanted to become a biker, and I was obsessed with it. I used to watch Gangland all the time, which is just a show on obviously gangs. And I was like obsessed with becoming a biker. And so guess what happened? The laws of attraction. I became a narcissist. I had to detach myself from the stuff that I seen and did and heard from the people that I was with, because these people had cold-hearted, just ice cold hearts. And for some reason, I embraced that fully, because that darkness as a kid, it just accumulated and accumulated to the point where I couldn't feel emotions anymore. I couldn't feel emotions. I couldn't feel empathy. I couldn't feel compassion. And everything was a lie to me. I was just waiting in a lobby, waiting to die. And go ahead.
How did you get from that point of just, not really wanting to end it for yourself, wanting to put yourself in a dangerous situation that could potentially, you had glimmer of hope, when you went through your training, and then you digressed again, and you went through and went to college and took a couple of courses. And so you interacted with different people, and then you went, on that spiral again. So when you hit that rock bottom, which often is what happens for people, you had to make a conscious decision to change it. So what was that turning point or that line in the sand moment that you said, I can do more than this?
I racked up about $30,000 in debt with 3 different gangs. When you are buying product off of a gang, it's called cuffing. When they spot it to you and they take your passport, driver's license, all your information, they photocopy it. Essentially, I had no money to pay these people, and I was playing musical money with pounds of weed and ounces of cocaine in order to pay it off, and like delaying the time and deadlines. And eventually it just came to a head where one of my sources that was distributing cocaine with me basically said, if you don't rob this guy that's coming to my territory, then we're going to have to take care of you. I'm going to smash your legs out with a baseball bat. So that put the fear in me. And I realized, like, if I don't do this, then I'm gonna, end in a really, really bad situation. And well, we got the weed off this guy, and we got him down. We got the weed off of him, and we didn't expect him to start chasing after us in his car, and he did. And he chased us right. We drove right through a bus station terminal, where the bus lane, where you're like, there's no way he's coming down here, and he followed us through. The entire time, the guy's smashing the car in front of everybody, families, everything, cutting us off, trying to do anything to stop us with the product. And at this point, I'm just like, what is going on? I was in absolute shock. And I noticed that there was two new vehicles. There was a white Silverado hatchback with like a ladder sticking out, with two middle-aged white guys that looked really pissed off, looking down into our car and smiling. And then there was a black truck, I think it was a Ford or something, that was also to our right. So we had three vehicles on our one vehicle. They smashed our vehicle into the side of the ditch. And like, this happened for like 2 hours. That the OPP actually intervened because I called them, and I just straight up told them we have these people after us, and they kept trying to get to us, but the vehicles just kept smashing us up. And there's one point where they almost got out and got us, and we fishtailed and we got back on the highway, and we just kept going forward. Eventually they got one of the guys and they arrested him. I think they got the other truck as well. But it was when I was sitting in the police station, I was just sitting there, and I was like, what is going on, Corey? This is the most terrifying thing that I have ever experienced in my entire life. Even over getting guns pulled on me before, this moment where you just feel completely helpless, you're not in the driver's seat at all. The moment I was like, I am getting out of here. I'm going to Alberta. I'm never looking back. And yeah, like that was the moment when I was sitting in the police station. After I talked to the detective, I was like, I cannot do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So Corey, the story you share, I'm so humbled by how open and this raw telling that you share with everyone. What tools did you rely upon to come from that moment in that police station to sitting here with us now, having navigated all that you've done and serving in the capacity that you're now doing?
About 5 years ago, I had this like thing, just this little beam of light just kind of came in my heart, and it was like, time to start fighting back. It's time to start fighting back, Corey. And I didn't know anything about mental health back then. I just knew that I kind of liked weightlifting. So I started, going to the gym, and I didn't really know what I was doing at first, but I knew that I was sweating and I felt good. And I just kind of centered my focus on that. And I became obsessed with fitness. I became a personal trainer. I lived and breathed it. I became a bodybuilder. I became a power lifter. I had an identity again. I had something when I had absolutely nothing before. And that fitness was definitely my first tool that, was my conduit to actually start the journey of wellness and stop being a complete victim. Not to say that I knew anything about the inner work that needed to happen later on, but yeah, like fitness was where it started. And then as I progressed, I just kind of fell out of love with fitness because the fitness industry was very superficial. They weren't, not to say everybody was, and I don't mean to do a generalization or anything, but it was a lot of exterior work. But a lot of my friends were having intestinal disease, and it was all just superficial, and I couldn't jive with that. So I decided I didn't know what to do. And my best friend at the time worked in the nonprofit sector, and he still does. He's a great friend of mine. He kind of inspired me, and he did. inspire me to start serving the world and to start helping society, because we have a lot of issues. So much like I shadowed the drug dealer back then, like the chameleon, I was shadowing this nonprofit guy that was doing incredible work in Parkinson's and everything. And I just realized that helping people feels incredible. And I felt good when I was doing it, even though at the time when I was doing it, I was still getting that dopamine pleasure rush because I wasn't happy on the inside. But at least at that moment, I was helping people and I wasn't actually taking from them. Because when I was taking from people, it just put a massive hole in my heart. And I just kept trying to fill that hole with drugs and alcohol and everything. But yeah, like as I progressed in the nonprofit sector, I started lobbying and doing advocacy for mental health, for veterans and first responders, and anybody, like kids have done presentations at schools and stuff too. So I love it. And the journey just keeps getting better and better. Like, to be perfectly honest, I've told Erica this, but not everybody else, but 3 months ago, I had a massive mental breakdown because I was doing frontline suicide prevention, peer support, mentorship, basically counseling, but with lived experience. And I was putting so many rocks in my satchel without really knowing what was going on. And doing those 5 a.m. wake up calls and putting myself out there for people all the time, to the point where there was nothing left for my fiance, there was nothing left for my family, there was nothing left for my friends. I didn't know how to balance anything anymore. And I came really close to just ending it 3 months ago. And I know that sounds super brutal, but I just, the thing is, when I had breakdowns before, when I was, in gangland and doing all the stuff I was doing, I didn't have empathy. I didn't have mindfulness. I didn't have all these tools that I did. So when I fell down 3 months ago, I realized all how my behavior was. I realized how angry I was, and it just, I lost everything. And COVID-19 happened and it sparked that whole thing. But I look back at the last 3 months, and I have grown more now in the last 3 months than probably my entire life. So to say that all these things that occurred I'm not grateful for is completely opposite. I am so grateful that this adversity has happened, because it has literally ignited the fire in my heart to not just fight back, but to thrive and to seek answers. And I love it.
It's so great. I love all of this, Corey. And I wanted to summarize some of these amazing tools that you've shared, because these are ones that I advocate with my clients all of the time. And you talked a lot about being real and being real with your emotions. You talked a lot about that light that you described in your heart that lit up. And I love that, Corey, because I'm always telling my clients to everyone's looking for the light, right? They're trying to find the light, but it's so important to be our own light and light up from within. And you did that, and you described that so beautifully. And then you took that and you empowered yourself, right? By strengthening your body, and you felt pride and achievement with that. And then you develop this attitude of gratitude, and you come through and you find this inspirational person. We all need inspirational role models to look up to. And you found this inspirational contact who was in the nonprofit world, who truly inspired you to rise up, which is so important for us all to find these role models. And then you took that and transferred that into service and contribution in community, and all pivotal tools as we navigate through adversity to implement. And you just summarized that all absolutely brilliantly. I thank you.
No problem.
I also love what you touched on, Corey, is that, you had a low 3 months ago, but if you think back to your history, is you didn't have these following tools. And what you really touched on was understanding your emotions, empathy, mindfulness and how you raise your vibration and your level by giving back to community. And so those things, when you recognize where you were 3 months ago to where you are today, and the tools that you have today and stuff are so powerful to get you to where you are today. And I can feel your light. I can feel it.
Last year I read a total of 1 book, and in the last 3 months I've read about 16 books on spirituality and self-development.
Yeah.
And I got a 2 book a week quota that I make, and I tell myself after I finish book, this is living proof that I love myself. I tell myself after I work out, this is living proof that I love myself. I put my hand on my heart, I feel it. And it's really hard to look in the mirror and hate yourself when you're putting the action forward. And I love myself now. And that was the biggest tool for anyone listening out there. Self-love is the gateway to the other side of your suffering. If you can start having a relationship with yourself and love yourself for who you truly are, you will find your purpose in this life. I can tell you that right now. Oh,
amazing.
Love it, Corey.
Amazing. So out of these 16 books that you read, what are 2 that you think our readers should pick up?
Oh man. Oh,
I know I'm limiting you to 2, but
for a while here, it sounds like.
Okay. So Eckhart Tolle, great author, The Power of the Now.
That's a good one.
Combined with Mike Springer's Untethered Soul.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Those 2 books grouped together. Oh my gosh. Like, not to say the other books don't have like worthwhile properties and principles. Like there's so much to talk about. It could be over 17 hours, but just those 2 books alone, that will open the door for somebody's curiosity to become their compass. 100%.
I love those tangible tools that you can give to our listeners. That's amazing.
Corey, tell me, so if our listeners wanted to reach out to you for peer support or for mental health advocacy, whatever they may be searching your story for and your resources, how can they find you, Corey?
Absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook, all those channels. I'm in startup mode right now. I am doing spiritual inner work with courses with Eckhart Tolle actually this Thursday. So for the next month, my business isn't going to be launching, but you can find me in a month from now at www.simplifiedmind.ca. And there's all my information's there. It's a mental health, spiritual, and fitness type program for resiliency, much like what you're doing. And I just want to create a universal language for mental health and a simplified version so that anyone can understand it.
Amazing, Corey. In the meantime, if any of our thrivers want to get a hold of you, they can reach out and contact risetoday.com, and I can connect them with you directly as well. This has just been an honor to have you on our show, Corey, and I'm so thankful that you took time out of your busy schedule to do so and share your raw and open telling of your story. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for blessing me with your presence.
You bet. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in today. This is the recap of day 4 or inspirational podcast number 4. We hope you'll tune in for number 5 as well. If you like and are feeling inspired by what you are hearing, please make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you get the updates of when we are launching new episodes. Thanks very much for joining us today. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
It's gonna be a good day.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Take this inspiration forward. Learn more at risetoday.com/podcast. And please do help us in our mission to spread hope, inspiration, and positivity by encouraging those in your circle to join us and to tune in for our next show of inspiration coming soon. Please contact us if you have a powerful story to share with us to inspire the world. Until next time, get out there and rise today.